I love welding, but so far I've only tried stick welding and I'm not very good at it, so I've come here to Lincoln Electric's Welding Technology Centre to find out how to do it properly.
That piece of kit there, that's the wire feeder, so that's delivering.
So we're going to start with MIG welding, and this machine is a multifunction machine that does all sorts of welding, and this machine has a separate wire feed unit and a separate power pack. I've never tried MIG welding before, so I had a little bit of a demo, a little bit of a chat about welding, just make sure my welding mask's on properly, and it's time to have a go and see what happens. I did a few straight lines, and then it's time to tack some steel together to make a fillet weld and try and actually join some pieces of steel together, which is the main reason you do welding. Right, I've done some welds with MIG. That was much easier than stick welding, so let's have a look and see how good they are. Alright, so I did some straight just beads of weld there to try and get a straight line. It's a bit lumpy, but it's very easy. Just point and shoot and go slow enough and you get an alright weld. So there we go. And I also made this where I just tacked it together and then basically welded along. You can see it's a bit messy, but it is very easy, and the welds, you know, look great. They're much better than my stick welds where that probably would have fallen to pieces. Plus we don't have to chip any slag off because we've got the gas, which is inert gas, which basically keeps the weld clean. So that I'm very happy with. That's a very functional piece. Could be neater, but you know, I can definitely make stuff out of steel.
We've got a lot of spatter.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual mill scale
Right.
on plate creates that spatter.
So you want to clean it up first?
Yeah.
Right. So what Terry was just explaining then was the technique there for the torch angle and how to see what you're doing. So I was having real problems. My welds are really lumpy because I'm kind of behind the weld where the arc is. So he's explaining to go to this side when you're right-handed and look in from this side, which is quite obvious really, and then it's actually much better. So my welds now are less lumpy and quite a bit more consistent. Still need to practice, but they're not looking too bad, so there we go. And there's some splatter we can see here on all these examples, which is basically because of the oxide on the material, so we need to clean the material up ideally. So it's nice and clean before welding, that should make a much cleaner weld.
If you increase the material thickness,
right,
that will actually increase.
Oh, I see, okay. Alright, so this is going to be my new welder, which is primarily MIG, but will do lift TIG with a different torch, and this is a fully automatic welder, so you can basically set the current, the material thickness, or the wire feed speed, and the rest sorts itself out. So I've just been putting this on the material thickness, which is 1.5mm, and just welding along, and everything seems pretty good. So this is my 1.5mm test piece, which was slightly harder, mainly because it's finer, and you can actually see the weld pool burn through to the other side. So I've welded it on both sides, but it was quite hard to see the corner, so some of that's a bit messy. This is about 4mm. This side's a lot more lumpy, so we turned up the material thickness. It turns everything else up, and the other side is a lot smoother there with high power, and it's really burnt the weld into the piece. So pretty happy with that from a functional point of view. Just need to practice getting the rate of welding right, basically, to match everything else, and we can make some quite functional pieces.
High frequency TIG.
So now it's time to have a go at TIG welding, which I've never done before either. And TIG welding has a separate torch that makes the arc and a separate filler rod that you have in the other hand. So again, I had a little bit of a demo and a little bit of a chat about the technique, and then it was time just to have a go and see what happens. Not sure what's occurred now. So this is my first TIG weld, so we're using this torch to strike the arc, and then a set of filler rods that we just dip into the weld pool. So I started off pretty good, so that's quite a happy arc, or quite a happy weld for my first go ever. And then along here I found it really hard to get the angle, and then everything went terrible. And then on the other side it's even worse, and then the torch got stuck and we've ruined the tungsten bit, so just have to replace that with one that's not all crooked and bent. But yeah, pretty happy to start with. It feels quite natural actually, having the torch in one hand, the filler rod in the other. It's a bit like soldering, although we're actually melting the steel together, not sticking solder on like glue. So I guess having done soldering and a bit of brazing, it's kind of the same technique, but people will be shouting at the screen saying it's not. I think it is. So what I'm now doing here is lift TIG, where you have to touch the tungsten bit of the torch down and pick it up again, then the welder knows it's time to strike an arc. And that's actually what happens on my new welder as well, so that's why I'm practicing this here. So mainly I just practice making straight lines, but I'm pretty happy with that technique. It's going to take a bit of practice, but I think I can make much neater welds, and of course it's less splattery. So also housed at Lincoln Electric's Welding Technology Centre is a showroom of all of the range of Lincoln Electric products, a bit of history of the welders that have been made through the years, various other equipment including a giant CNC stick welder, a CNC plasma cutter, and various other parts of the product range. Thanks again to Lincoln Electric for today, and thanks for the new welder. There's going to be a lot more welding in my channel, so look out for metalwork. Alright, that's all for now.